Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Connected by Community, a podcast brought to you by Ballantine Capital Advisors. I'm Brian Ballantine, and I'm here with Cameron Cannon, and we are happy today to have Mr. Nate Moore from Upstate Warrior Solutions. Nate, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Awesome. So, obviously, a lot of military stuff goes on in the month of November, so this is a great month to have this podcast, and so we're thankful just for the timing and certainly for your service and those in our country that have been a great part of it. So we certainly want to talk about that. Before we do, I'll have the audience know a little bit about you. We were talking before we started the podcast, but maybe share with us where you come from and are you married, have kids, that kind of thing, and are you in this community locally?
Yeah, sure. I appreciate it. So I'm in Simpsonville now. I've been here since 2010. Spent some time in the Marine Corps, and before that, I was born and raised in Richmond, Virginia. Got two boys, 7 and 9. Boys drive me, nonstop, right? But yeah, I call Greenville home, and this is where I've been.
Awesome. So you mentioned the Marine Corps. So tell us a little bit about that. How long did you serve, and what kind of things did you do there?
Yeah, sure. So I joined the Marine Corps right after high school. Took probably a month break to realize kind of what I wanted to do or what I didn't want to do at the time. Did 8 years in the Marine Corps, deployed to Iraq in 2006. So one kind of nugget is my 1 year mark in the Marine Corps. I'd been in Iraq for like two months at that point. So
wow.
Boot camp, school, Iraq, really fast. Came back and then deployed again to Afghanistan in 2010. While in Afghanistan, I got banged up a little bit. That led to a medical retirement. My wife had at that point already graduated from Virginia Tech, moved to Greenville on a whim. So got here, and the rest is history.
Awesome. So I think, again, thanks for your service, but I'm sure you've seen things that many of us haven't. And, I guess what's one thing you'd want folks to know about people that serve in the military and the things that they do for our country that maybe that goes unseen? Sure.
I think that, people join the military for a bunch of different reasons. You think of like the 12 guys in my squad. We all had different motivations for joining. Some people always wanted to be a Marine. They had their parents sign a waiver when they were 17 so they could join, early. Some people joined, like me. I went on a college visitor too. I'm like, this isn't the school I wanted to go to. Marine recruiter called on the right day, and I was like, sure, let's see it. I like a challenge. I wasn't one of those guys that wanted to join their entire time. I kind of felt like I wanted to get involved with what was going on. My dad served, my grandparents served, so I kind of came from that lineage. But I wasn't one of the guys that always wanted to be a Marine. Then other guys, are 35 years old, and they're like, I got to make a change. I need better health insurance or whatever the reason. But all of those guys essentially, sign up to be a part of something bigger than them, and then they go and deploy. And then when they get out, they're looking for different ways to kind of stay connected, and trying to continue that service.
That's awesome. One thing, but before we jump into Upstate Warrior Solutions, can you speak a little bit about the intensity of the training, that you had to go through to be a part of Marines?
Yeah, I think that, you'll probably laugh and roll your eyes, but I wrestled in high school, and I was in really good shape and was always a competitive person. So like the physical aspect of the training wasn't the tough part. I think that the tough part is for guys when they don't, one, they're not prepared for it, physically, mentally, whatever. But two, they're just not, but really, there's not prepared to because they don't have the culture to follow instructions and to be like, I mean, on day one, I was like, all right, I'm in shape. I can do the physical aspect. If I run fast, scream loud, and follow instructions without asking questions, I'll be fine. And that's kind of what makes a good Marine a good Marine. I didn't question a bunch of stuff, going through boot camp, like, run here now. Aye, sir, and I run there now, right? I just followed in instructions and didn't kind of push back on the system. It's different in other branches, but the Marine Corps, one of the big things they push is instant willingness to and obedience. So just follow the instruction that you're given, then don't ask questions about that in instruction.
Gotcha.
So,
yeah, no, that's awesome.
And it seems like the Marines, I'm sure all branches of the service, but I know we were talking before the show. I have some family members of the Marines. There's certainly almost a fraternity there.
Oh, yeah.
And a sense of pride that's unique, right?
Yeah.
And this being the month of the birthday of the Marines, it kind of comes out. So that has to be a cool aspect for your fellow man that had served with you whenever you're around those folks.
Yeah, when I was 18 years old, and other branches will kind of disagree and roll their eyes, but also when I'm 18, I was like, like I said, competitive. I want to be a part of something, bigger. I want to be a part of what I viewed as the best branch. Mm-hmm. I heard my dad and grandparents say, "This is the hardest branch. This is a challenge." The discipline's high. You look at the uniform, everybody is trim, high and tight haircuts, they're locked in. I was like, well, if I'm going to do it, that's what I want to do. And when I went to pick my job, I was like, all right, it's 2004. I'm going to be in Iraq pretty fast. I'll be in Afghanistan, after that. I don't want to join the Marine Corps to work on tanks or, something like that. If I join the fight, I want to go and fight. So I picked a combat arms job. I was a combat engineer. We were responsible for finding IEDs, blowing up IEDs, looking for weapon caches, and essentially unlocking doors that didn't want to be unlocked. A bunch of dynamic entry stuff, bunch of demolition stuff. So I lucked out. I got to do the job that I wanted to do.
Sounds like it's pretty dangerous too.
I had some close calls, and that kind of led me to getting medically retired, right? But I'm glad for my service and look back on it fondly. I got a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old, and at one point, one wanted to be a dinosaur and one wanted to be a Marine, and I would encourage them to do both as long as they could.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. So let's maybe translate then what is, first of all, Upstate Warrior Solutions, and what led you to that, and a little bit about that transition to help there.
Appreciate it. Yeah. So Upstate Warrior Solution is a local veterans nonprofit. Here on the local level, we have an office in Greenville, Spartanburg, Anderson, and Pickens. And our goal is to connect every vet in the upstate and assist them with whatever need they have going on that looks different for the different clients that we connect to. Some need employment, some need, getting connected to the VA and some healthcare stuff taken care of. Some have some legal issues they have support or they need support for. And some just want to get connected to vets and go to Clemson football games. We got the Clemson Military Appreciation Game is this Saturday, and we're able to connect guys to some tickets and do the whole tailgating thing. Everything that we do for the vet, we also do for the family and the spouse. That's one thing that makes us a little different. We connect to about 100 new vets a month. Serve about 1,000 a year. And we've been doing that since roughly 2012, 2013 timeframe. So we just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. We've grown to this point, past where we ever thought we'll be. We do more things now for our clients than we ever thought we could do. But we wouldn't be able to do that if it wasn't for the support of the upstate community. I've been involved with this team kind of since I got out of the Marine Corps. So I got out in August of 2012. And at that point, I'd started volunteering with some guys and trying to just stay connected to vets and to Marines. When I was getting out, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. At that point, I had the goal of, all right, I'm getting retired. I'll have some extra income. I'm going to go get a job at a golf course. And I can cut grass and play free golf. Right. That
sounds pretty good.
That was the goal at the time. Right. But then I got connected to some guys and we started doing a little bit and they're like, all right, well, let's, make this, a more legit thing. And so I've been involved since day one. I'm really proud of that. That's given me a good purpose. And that's one of the things I hope to help guys kind of maintain when they're getting out of the military or whether they've been out for 20 years. They've kind of lost their way a little bit. They may have, had their purpose maybe in their job or their wife or something like that, and they've kind of lost it a little bit. So we're trying to help them gain back that purpose, trying to help them see again the things that they were successful at in the Marine Corps, the Army. You were a great soldier. You've, kind of lost that way a little bit. Let's get back on track. And sometimes that happens to guys. They've been out for a year and sometimes 20 years.
Yeah. Can you talk on how tough and almost scary that transition is going from, being enlisted and fighting out there on the field to then, kind of coming home and transitioning into, quote unquote, normal life again? Yeah.
The military has changed, being completely honest. Right. So I got out in 2012 and 90% of my peers were either deploying to Iraq or Afghanistan or involved in the training and support of that. But now when guys are getting out, let's say they did 4 years, they're not deploying to Iraq anymore. They're not deploying to Afghanistan anymore. We're deploying to Africa, but that's not, most folks don't know we're doing that as much as we are. We're deploying to Syria, places like that. Most folks don't know we're supporting, that as much as we are. So the military has changed, but the culture of the military is the same. Kind of what it takes to be successful in the Marine Corps in 1985 and 2020 are the same thing. But when you get out, that culture is completely, different. I can't talk to my wife or the employees that I have the same way I can to Marines I'm in charge of. 1, 2, when you're in the Marine Corps, you have a big picture purpose, right? My job supports this mission. This mission supports the mission of the Marine Corps. Then you get out and you go to school for something you're not really sure you want to do. Then you get a job. It could be at Publix or it could be in finance or it could be whatever it is. But you're always kind of questioning, do I have the same purpose or same mission that I did before? So that's kind of one of the big struggles. And we've seen that with other fields too. Imagine a college football player. He's been playing since he was 6 years old. Football, all through high school. He's one of the best there are. So he goes to Clemson on scholarship, plays for 4 years, 5 years, whatever. But then when he gets out, he's like, well, can't keep playing football. Now I got a degree. I'm going to go get a job selling insurance. But he's still missing that, that same team aspect or same mission, that he has. So it's the same struggle as law enforcement is the same thing. One thing that we're starting to do more is support first responders, because we see that the same struggles that we are having as the military and kind of in that transition, law enforcement and first responders are also having. They'll do 4 years, 10 years, 25 years. Then they'll retire from law enforcement or being a firefighter. Then they'll try and do a few jobs to make more income than they had before, but they're missing that mission and the brotherhood that they had when they were in. So we're starting to support them more and more than we have in the past.
So what does a support like that look like? Because I, kind of related to the college story. I grew up racing motocross from the time I was 6.
Yeah.
That was my whole life. I mean, Brian knows this. Yeah. And then it's like, that kind of ended abruptly. And it's like, okay, well, now I'm going to go to school. Yeah, that was a little bit of not a struggle. It was just kind of a change. Yeah. And then now I'm, in the real world working, which was, a change too. So I understand that. So what are, obviously not comparing that to the military, it's completely different. Yeah. But what are some activities, some things that you are seeing to kind of help those guys regain purpose and regain that feeling of, this is what I'm meant to do and kind of regain that again?
Well, I think it happens a few different ways. I think one is from the nonprofit aspect. Guys served their country and now they get back and they miss kind of that service component. So we kind of give them opportunities to get connected to other vets. One thing on a side note that we've been successful at is when you're at like in Columbia or Beaufort or, West Coast and San Diego, there's huge military presence there because there's big bases, big Army base, big Marine Corps base, big Navy base. But in Greenville, you don't have that big, military base. But there's over 120,000 vets in the 5 counties of the upstate.
Wow. So
one thing that we try and do is try and bring those vets together. To kind of show them, hey, you're not here alone. Hey, the Marine Corps deploys to the same place nonstop. So I'll meet a Marine who was kind of in the same time frame. Like, hey, when did you go to Iraq? Like, oh, I was in Iraq, 2004 ago. I was in 2005. Where'd you go? It's like, oh, I was in Al-Qaim. Oh, I was there too. I guess I was the unit that replaced you, or your unit replaced mine. Same thing in Afghanistan. Same thing in the Army. We always go to the same places. So we're just trying to help those vets connect to each other to kind of expand that brotherhood.
So yeah, and I think because it's a unique brotherhood, it's that connection that you're missing, and pardon the pun, but connected by community. It's a little bit about why we're having this podcast, right? We as a community have different intertwined things that connect us together. It's why we're here. So I think that's awesome. But how do folks find, if I'm a vet, how do you reach out to the community so they know you're there? Yeah. These services are available, these different connections. Sure. So what reach outs do you guys do?
We're all over Facebook, website, physical locations. If you Google search Upstate Warrior Solution, it'll be the first thing that comes up. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook. Yeah. We're everywhere. We've our goal, our number one goal is to connect every vet in the Upstate. I mean, that's when you look at our mission statement, it's connect, lead, inspire. So step one is connect. So we're always at different events. You mentioned before we got Veterans Day. Tomorrow, Marine Corps birthday today. I feel like as a veterans nonprofit, this is our busiest time of the year. I had 3 things yesterday, 3 things today. Tomorrow is going to be funny, right? So like we're everywhere. But if someone reaches out online, we're glad to connect to them.
So do y'all have like a couple big events every year to try to really bring that in and get the word out? Or is it just an ongoing thing all year?
It's an ongoing thing. We've got a few, big like golf tournaments here. And on Memorial Day last year, we did a hike downtown. We did 14 miles. We stopped at, 12 different, spots to honor 12 different veterans and first responders who had passed. We were literally started at Bond Secures. We walked, halfway to TR and came back and finished downtown. There's pictures online of 500 folks carrying American flags. That was year 1, and we're excited for year 2. But yeah, we try and be all over the place. I ran into a friend yesterday, and she was like, I just left, this Pickens employment event, and you had Donnie there, and you're here. And I was like, well, we got this next. She's like, yeah, all over the place. I was like, yeah, we are. So yeah, that's a huge compliment to us. That means we're out in the community doing the work.
So I think it sounds like you guys are blanking in the community, which is really important to reach them where they are.
Yeah.
So do you have volunteers to do that? Do you have staff? How's the structure of the organization set up to support all these outreaches?
Yeah, so we've got probably 23 employees and a bunch of volunteers, and we really couldn't do it without volunteers. But our goal is to have a presence, and kind of when we started, and we definitely saw it during COVID. Guys were having a hard time kind of getting connected to the VA or other resources. I was like, well, our goal is to meet you where you are, whether that's Starbucks. I've met guys at their job, meet them in the office, wherever they are. We don't want location to be a barrier. That's why we have, a physical presence in, like I said, Greenville, Spartanburg, Pickens, and Anderson.
So if businesses or other people outside the community, maybe who aren't even military, want to get involved, is that something those volunteers can come in, or community businesses, and partner with you guys to help promote what you're doing?
Yeah, 100%. I think the best way for them to get connected to us is to kind of reach out online, and we'll go from there. But like I said, we couldn't do what we do if it wasn't the support of companies like this and, our community as a whole. We just got our first VA, grant, our big federal grant, right? But before that, we were 100%, privately funded. So
awesome. Well, I'll tell you, I'll be honest. Before this conversation, I didn't know a bunch about you guys, and I didn't know there was that many veterans. So that's awesome to hear, because certainly they're a vital part of our community, and glad to hear all you're doing. I guess if, one last question I have before I think I'm done, I may think of more. What's maybe the biggest one or two misperceptions the public might have about what the veterans do need from our community to be a vital, thriving role in our community?
Yeah, I think one thing that when you and my answer might be different than other folks, right? I don't view vets as guys who are broken that need to be, desensitized or kind of change their, way of thinking to be successful. I feel like in the military and in combat and things like that, you get your limits tested and you get your limits pushed. So I think one thing that we need isn't to we're not like broken puppies, right? We're not the commercial that you see at 2 a.m. of help a vet.
Right.
We are warriors who are extremely successful. Sometimes we just need a opportunity that we might have, and like employment, right? So one of the things we do with employment is we help guys understand what they're good at. A bunch of the guys that we work with were motor T in the Army. They get out and they think, all I can do is motor T, but I don't want to turn wrenches anymore. I was like, that sounds great. I don't want to turn wrenches either. I'm really good at these things right here that I didn't know I had. But those small skills that kind of expanded in the Marine Corps, I've used that to be successful. I didn't know what a nonprofit was, even when I was in college. And when I started doing this work, I was like, you can get paid to do nonprofit work. I thought nonprofit, everybody works for free, but it's run like a business,
Yeah, awesome. One thing you were talking, I said I wouldn't ask any more questions.
You're fine.
I actually got a statement, but so we actually talked about this on another podcast. So my brother works for a construction management firm in another state, and they've had trouble finding workers, like a lot of folks, especially highly skilled workers, to basically be managers in that environment. So one of the things they've done, not just the Marines, but all branches of the military, they have turned to the military, and the folks coming out of there, not necessarily trained in construction, but what they found is kind of what you said. Yeah. Their skill set was discipline, work ethic, integrity.
That's right.
And these core things, which maybe allowed them to turn a wrench, like you were saying, maybe they could be transitioned into a different career that took those three characteristics. And then my brother now has to teach them the job functions, but the 3 core characteristics the Marine Corps taught them or supplemented their natural abilities. And so I think employers are starting to recognize, boy, there is this great group of folks. And oh, by the way, they're really appreciative.
That's right.
And maybe not have, I don't mean to, the younger generation, Cameron, sorry.
No,
maybe they don't have some of the, because they have seen turmoil, strife, and real problems, I'll call it. Sometimes we in America don't know what real problems are, right? Go to Afghanistan. I've never been there, but I can only imagine that's real problems.
It's hot, so it's fine.
Yeah. So you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so I think they have a perspective. If you take a 25-year-old coming out or 30-year-old coming out of the military, have a different perspective than I got an MBA from Harvard. Nothing wrong with an MBA from Harvard, right? We all need really smart people, and both of them can be smart. But there's a world perspective the other person doesn't have.
Yeah, I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head. So when I think of like 3 or 4 of the best success stories, like we got like kind of have for employment, few of those are actually they went from no construction experience or Marine Corps combat engineer construction experience, which is blowing things up more than building things, right? So
deconstruction.
That's right. So they took that experience, but we connected them to, big, construction firms that are doing apartment complexes and hotels and, big projects like that. But they're having a hard time, finding assistant superintendents because they couldn't get guys to be out. Sometimes it's long hours. They're doing punch lists. They're working with other men, so you got to be okay to be dirty, give instructions and follow a checklist and have pretty good attention to detail when you're going through a OSHA checklist. So they're able to kind of get connected with them with minimal, training up front and kind of grow, and then they've been with these companies for 3 and 4 years. They've been promoted 2 or 3 times. They're now making more than they ever thought they could make. Really, but they don't have college degrees. That's different for finance, right? I want that guy to have a degree and understand what's going on. But, in fields like construction, we're talking big project managers.
Yep.
It's been super successful.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. And I can also attest in a couple states over, that's definitely going on.
Yeah,
so that's really cool to hear. Yeah. Well, I know Cameron has at least one more question, if not others. But
so I really, like I said, really appreciate you coming out and learned a lot today. But one question we always like to ask is, what makes you tick?
I mean, I wish you would have told me that 20 minutes ago when I could think. So when I think of what I get the most purpose from what I do, it's helping people accomplish a goal, right? So it's, hey, this is my goal, and it's like, well, I can help you by doing this way. Sometimes with vets, it's making a connection. It's being a mentor. It's sometimes solving the small problems. Like, hey, I'm calling the VA, but they're not answering. It's like, oh, well, let's call this person right here. I'll text them real fast, and they'll respond. It's even. I coach youth wrestling. I've been doing it for 4 years. I wrestled in high school, and I've gotten a bunch of satisfaction from that because I'm able to teach 6-year-olds who don't know how to wrestle to go on to be state champs. All right, so it's really helping people accomplish their goal and working on great teams.
Awesome.
That's all. Well, again, thank you for both your service and what you're doing for our community and your organization. I know we talked about it a little bit, but if you don't mind, as we end here, tell our audience how they connect with you. How do they find Upstate Warrior Solutions if they want to get involved, volunteer, donate, and et cetera?
I appreciate it. The best way to connect to us is probably online. If you Google Upstate Warrior Solution, we'll pop up. Or if you just search uws.us, you'll find us.
Awesome. Thanks again, Nate. And certainly thanks again for your service to our community.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And thanks everyone for joining us on this edition to Connected by Community. Until we see you next time, go out and make our community great. Bye-bye.